Shock at the airwaves in 1989, when one quick gag on the Benny Hill Show exploded into a massive backlash. A program once hailed as harmless fun suddenly found itself under a fierce spotlight, accused of crossing every line known to television. That single scene, packed with Benny's trademark cheeky humor, morphed into a lightning rod for arguments over decency and taste. Angry letters flooded offices, advertisers panicked, and within weeks the network yanked the series, ending a 34-year run in one breathtaking moment. How could a few seconds of comedy kill an icon? The journey starts long before that uproar, deep in Benny's childhood. Alfred Hawthorne Hill, known everywhere as Benny Hill, first cried out on 21 January 1924 in the port city of Southampton, England. He grew up in a cramped working-class home where laughter doubled as currency. His dad, Alfred, painted clown faces in a traveling circus, while his mom, Helen, held the household together with kindness and old Laurel and Hardy reels. Every evening, Benny watched his father rehearse pratfalls and silly walks at the kitchen table. Those private lessons planted seeds, yet reality pulled him toward steady pay rather than stage lights. After leaving school, he dashed through a string of gritty jobs that read like a catalog of everyday Britain. He rose before dawn to deliver milk, lifted heavy gears as a bridge operator, revved engines as a truck driver, and pounded drums in smoky pubs. Each shift introduced characters who later popped up in sketches. War arrived like a thunderclap. In 1942, Benny traded civvies for khaki and joined the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers. The regiment repaired everything from searchlights to tank radios, but Benny repaired morale. During nights without bombs, he mimicked officers, cracked jokes about army grub, and turned bomb shelters into makeshift theaters. The roar of laughter convinced him that comedy was not just a hobby, it was destiny. After the war, Benny marched into show business with the confidence of a man who had already conquered tough crowds. Choosing the stage name Benny Hill paid tribute to Jack Benny, the American wit who proved simple jokes could charm millions. Radio welcomed the newcomer first. Through static-filled speakers, Benny dazzled listeners by flipping between voices, genders, even species, sometimes all within one skit. He learned that every second counts when the audience only has their ears. Television changed the rules yet again. With cameras rolling, he could chase nurses down corridors, crash through doors, and mug straight to the lens. His screen debut came in 1950 on Hi There, a lively variety hour that let him test outrageous costumes and double takes. Viewers howled, and the phone at BBC headquarters would not stop ringing. Producers knew they had struck gold. They booked him on the BBC Center show, where he played pompous judges, clueless bus drivers, and smooth lounge singers, sometimes all in the same evening. His mastery of physical comedy set him apart in a medium still discovering its own language. Even the silver screen beckoned. In the 1956 romp Whodunit, he portrayed Hugo Dill, a bumbling ice rink attendant whose detective dreams led to dizzy chases across London. Critics noted that Benny stole every scene with rubber-faced energy and perfect timing. His writer's room thrived on a simple rule: nothing sacred. They spoofed politicians' soap operas, even high art ballet, all in the same half hour. The faster Benny shifted roles, the louder the studio audience cheered. Music also powered the show. Up-tempo chase songs let sketches end in a blur of running feet, tilted caps, and playful pats that viewers instantly recognized. Millions tuned in each week to see what mischief that winking smile would bring next. All these successes formed a staircase leading to one inevitable outcome: his own series. Yet while Benny sprinted across screens grabbing laughs, society marched in a different direction, demanding new respect for changing values. The collision course was set, and by 1989 one sketch would trigger the crash heard around the world. The Benny Hill Show hit living rooms like a thunderbolt in 1955 and never looked back. Week after week, families gathered around grainy screens, eager for the next burst of manic energy. At a time when most comics stood still telling tidy jokes, Benny sprinted across sets with wild eyes and even wilder costumes. He made slapstick an international language that needed no translation. A slip on a banana peel got the same laugh in London Lagos or Lima. By 1969, the program jumped from the BBC to Thames Television, and the audience only grew. Satellite deals soon beamed Benny to every continent except Antarctica. Tourists even bought cassette tapes of his theme song, so they could hum along back home. The recipe looked simple, yet nobody else could cook it quite the same. Take 1 part lightning-fast chase, 1 part parody of the week, then season with cheeky word games. Stir the pot until the studio floor shook with applause. Every episode felt like a carnival that had broken loose from its tent. Slapstick remained the beating heart. Benny would bowl over an entire police patrol, then leap up unhurt grinning at the camera. Viewers expected at least one wild pursuit where feet moved in double speed, while yakety sax blared in the background. That music became so famous that even children who had never seen the show could whistle its tune. Parody added sharper teeth. Benny poked fun at blockbuster films, flashy pop stars, and pompous politicians with equal delight. His impersonations were so spot on that the real celebrities sometimes called the network begging for copies. Yet the real secret weapon was double meaning. Benny loved planting a harmless sentence that came alive with a nudge and a wink. Adults caught the hidden joke, while kids only heard silly rhymes. Critics called it naughty but clever, while defenders argued it was harmless mischief. Either way, the public could not get enough. Money poured in. By the late 70s, the show ranked among the highest earners in British television history. Retailers sold Benny Hill t-shirts, coffee mugs, even board games that let players race plastic figures around miniature streets. But storm clouds gathered in the background. Social attitudes were changing fast. Voices rose demanding more respect for women and tighter limits on suggestive comedy. What once felt playful now struck some viewers as mean-spirited. Letters of complaint trickled in month after month. Benny tried small tweaks, shortening chase scenes and giving female characters more punchlines. Still, the core formula relied on quick thrills and saucy grins. Any large change risked breaking the magic that kept ratings high. Tension reached its breaking point in 1989. A sketch opened with Benny once again chasing a group of nurses through hospital corridors. The scene lasted only seconds, yet viewers erupted. Newspapers blasted headlines calling it outdated and offensive. Activist groups staged noisy protests outside Thames headquarters. Advertisers panicked. Brands did not want their logos near what critics labeled exploitative. Executives faced a brutal choice: defend an aging show or protect revenue. They chose the latter and canceled the Benny Hill show without a farewell episode. Fans were stunned while opponents cheered. Just like that, television lost one of its loudest and most recognizable voices. The cancellation proved how quickly public taste can swing. Yesterday's laughter can become tomorrow's outrage. Looking back, many historians agree that Benny Hill was both a product of his era and a pioneer who taught television how to blend sight, sound, and speed into pure entertainment. His fall serves as a warning that comedy always walks a tightrope over shifting social ground. Even after the final curtain reruns kept his legacy alive, millions still chuckle at the slow-motion pratfalls and the sly grin that promised mischief seconds before arrived. Yet the debate over what is harmless and what is harmful still rages today. One thing is certain: the name Benny Hill will forever echo whenever comedians push boundaries chasing that next big laugh. His story reminds creators that humor never exists in a vacuum. It lives inside the ever-changing hearts of its audience. Music was never just filler on the Benny Hill show. It was pure fuel for the laughs. Between sketches, Benny would burst on the stage with guitar or slide behind a piano while the crowd roared. He wrote many of those tunes himself and even switched instruments mid-song like a one-man band in Fast Forward. The lyrics were sometimes silly, sometimes clever, always delivered with a wink that said trouble was coming. These musical breaks gave viewers a breather before the next storm of slapstick. Yet they were comic gems on their own. Exaggerated faces, goofy dances, and surprise sound effects kept everyone glued to the screen. Then came the moment everyone waited for, the blazing chase set to yakety sax. That frantic melody became the heartbeat of the program, and the second it kicked, the audience knew chaos was only a breath away. In those scenes, Benny often sprinted from furious policemen or a line of wronged women, legs pumping like pistons while the film ran at double speed. Hats flew, doors slammed, and nobody escaped without a pie in the face or a tumble down the stairs. By the mid-1970s, the show had turned into appointment viewing across the United Kingdom. Families gathered after dinner ready for pratfalls, wordplay, and a familiar grin that promised mischief. The waves soon crossed oceans. Australia, Canada, and huge parts of Asia fell for the same fizzy mix of sight gags and easy-to-grasp jokes. Laughter needs no translator, and Benny's wild energy bridged every culture. Late-night TV stations in the United States fought for syndication rights. Viewers who had never tasted British humor before suddenly stayed up past midnight just to watch Benny race across their screens. Industry insiders took notice. The series earned British Academy nominations year after year, proving that even lofty judges could not ignore that massive audience. Across the Atlantic, an Emmy nod sealed his status as an international comedy force. Yet while ratings soared, the world around the show was shifting. The feminist movement gathered momentum and began asking tough questions about how women appeared on television. Viewers started to see those old sketches with new eyes, and the laughter caught in many throats. Women were often shown only as pretty targets in short skirts, chased for sport, or reduced to punchlines that had nothing to do with their wit. Criticism rolled louder with each season. Articles pointed to the endless ogling and asked why female characters almost never got the last joke. The same routines that once felt harmless now looked unkind. Networks also toughened their rules. Regulators pushed for stories that treated every group with respect, and sponsors worried about bad headlines. Pressure mounted on Benny to modernize his style. He tweaked a line here and trimmed a gag there, but the heart of the show still relied on playful chases and cheeky innuendo. Fans cheered while critics fumed, and the gap between those camps grew wider every week. Gradually, numbers slipped as some longtime watchers drifted to fresher programs that spoke to the new mood. A series that had dominated for decades was suddenly wobbling on shaky legs. Everyone's sense of reckoning was ahead, yet nobody guessed how fast it would land. The stage was set for one sketch to ignite a firestorm that no amount of laughter could smother. The tipping point arrived in 1989, and it hit like a thunderclap. Benny opened a sketch playing his familiar dirty old man, eyes bulging the second a woman strolled past. He leered, he wiggled his eyebrows, and the audience heard nervous giggles instead of full-throated laughs. The camera zoomed so close you could count every wrinkle as his grin stretched wider. Moments later, a flock of nurses in skimpy uniforms hurried through the set, and suddenly straps slipped, skirts flew, and shock rippled through living rooms. Benny's character gawked in cartoon delight, but viewers felt a chill. What once registered as cheeky now looked crude, even mean, in a world newly aware of harassment on the street and in the office. Letters of protest poured in before the credits stopped rolling. Newspapers pounced the next morning. Headlines blasted the show for fossilized attitudes and called the gag a relic that belonged in the past, not prime time. Activist groups who had warned about sexism for years finally saw proof they needed to demand action. They picketed outside Thames Television with banners that read "Stop the Smirks" and "Give Women Respect." Advertisers panicked. Big brands decided their shiny logos could not sit beside a sketch that felt so tone-deaf. Contracts were reconsidered, and the money pipeline started to sputter. Inside, the network boardroom executives faced a brutal math problem: keep a once mighty show that now sparked outrage, or cut their losses and back newer programs that matched modern ideas. They reached for the axe. In a single memo, Thames Television canceled the Benny Hill show. No farewell special, no grand goodbye, just silence where yakety sax once blared. Fans around the globe gasped. Some called the decision censorship. Others admitted the laughter had already faded, and many simply felt stunned that an institution could vanish overnight. Benny himself appeared hurt, yet defiant. Friends said he believed the sketch had been blown out of proportion, while critics argued he had ignored every warning sign. Historians later noted that the program's fall marked a turning point in popular culture. It showed that comedy cannot freeze in time, because society never stands still. Television soon filled with new voices, sharper viewpoints, and humor that punched up instead of punching down. The chase scenes were gone, yet the debate about where to draw the line had only begun. Reruns still pop up in late-night slots, and audiences sometimes laugh out of nostalgia, sometimes wince in surprise, always reminded that yesterday's joke might feel jagged today. The lesson rings loud for performers everywhere. A single scene can topple a giant when public mood shifts. Respect a moment or risk becoming a footnote when the credits roll. A storm was building behind the scenes at Thames Television, and it had nothing to do with ratings. Executives watched nervously as critics and viewers began to turn on the Benny Hill Show. What had once been a moneymaker now looked like a ticking time bomb. Advertisers recoiled at the thought of their brands tied to jokes that many now called outdated and offensive. The network felt the heat, knowing rival programs were already updating their humor to match modern views. In that light, Benny's antics began to seem stuck in the past. Pressure mounted daily. Sponsors quietly asked for script changes. Standards boards whispered that television must uphold evolving values. Meanwhile, fresh comedy series aired that celebrated diversity and clever satire, leaving Benny's slapstick style looking old-fashioned. By early 1989, a silent consensus had formed in the boardroom. The show was more liability than asset. The very elements that once drew cheers, chase scenes, cheeky innuendo, one-dimensional female roles, were now under fire as society demanded respect for every viewer. Still, Thames hesitated. After all, the program delivered reliable audience numbers. Could they risk losing loyal fans? But every passing week brought new complaints. The balance sheet began to tilt as sponsors threatened to pull their ads. Reputation and revenue both hung in the balance. Then came the moment of truth. A spike in negative press reports forced Thames to act. They realized that no tweak or apology could fully erase the growing backlash. The choice was stark: radically reinvent the show or pull the plug altogether. Executives chose the latter. In one terse memo, they quietly canceled the Benny Hill Show. No farewell special, no grand send-off. Just a line on the schedule where yakety sax once reigned supreme. Benny Hill supporters cried foul, calling it censorship. Yet critics celebrated a long-coming victory for respect and decency on television. In one fell swoop, an era of fast-paced, cheeky comedy gave way to a new age of sensitive storytelling. The cancellation was more than a scheduling change. It was a cultural turning point. Audiences realized that comedy cannot freeze in time when society keeps moving forward. In the wake of the show's end, Thames Television rushed to fill the void with programs that spoke to modern values. Sketches now tackled real-world issues. Writers pushed boundaries by punching up at power instead of down at individuals. And female characters won center stage. Meanwhile, Benny Hill retreated from the spotlight, his health and spirit shaken by the sudden fall. He made a handful of guest appearances, but the spark of live chase scenes and cheeky gags was gone. The world had moved on. Television historians point to 1989 as the year British comedy learned a vital lesson. Humor must reflect the times or risk becoming a relic. The once unstoppable chase scenes and innuendo-fueled sketches became case studies in how public taste can shift overnight. Reruns still surface on late-night blocks, and reactions remain mixed. Some viewers laugh at the nostalgia. Others flinch at jokes that now feel harsh. Every encore reminds us that what once sparked joy can later spark outrage. Benny Hill's legacy lives on his both triumph and cautionary tale. He showed generations how to blend sight, sound, and speed into pure entertainment. But he also proved that even the biggest star can fall when culture demands change. Today's comedians study his timing and energy, but they also study his downfall. They know that every punchline lands in a larger social context, and that respect for audience values is as crucial as the joke itself. One scene in 1989 ended more than a series. It closed a chapter in comedy history, and it opened a new one where creators must balance daring laughs with evolving standards. The story of the Benny Hill Show reminds us. TV can be uproarious, absurd, and wildly entertaining, but it must also listen to its audience or face an abrupt finale.